right, thank you very much for still staying with us. It's still AM120. This morning we are talking about tax, looking at the new tax laws, understanding how it works. And, there's been questions about the new tax law, which will take effect from January 1st to be precise, 2026, which is set to simplify the tax system, broaden the tax base, and improve compliance. This morning, to do justice to this particular topic, we have Mrs. Olaitan Babatunde. She is the tax expert and coordinator, Society of Women in Taxation Suite, or your state chapter. You're welcome this morning.
Good morning.
It's good to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much for coming. We also have Mr. Kazim Tejumola. He is the chairman, Chartered Institute of Taxation, Nigeria, Ibadan District. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Let's start with, you briefly explaining to us what the new tax law is. Let's start with Mr. Kazim.
Thank you very much. Yeah, the new tax law was actually signed into law by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in June 2025. And the implementation will start on 1st of January 2026. It's all about bringing out from the old laws, reform on new laws to start implementing. And then when we talk of these new laws, we are talking about the Nigerian Tax Act 2025. We are talking about Nigerian Tax Administration Act 2025, Nigerian Revenue Service Establishment Act 2025, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act 2025. For the Nigerian Tax Act, it's a new law that encompasses all the tax laws we have been using before now. When you talk of the company income tax, you talk of capital gain tax, you talk of petroleum profit tax, all these have been consolidated into the new Nigerian Tax Act, which implementation will start by January 2026.
Okay. What about the other ones you ruled out? The Nigeria Tax Administration Act,
yes,
Nigeria Revenue Service Establishment Act, and the Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act.
Yes. Let me quickly talk on Nigerian Revenue Joint Revenue Board Tax Act. Yes, this replaces what we have before, because under the present one we are using, when you have dispute from tax authorities and taxpayers, they used to go to there is what we call a kind of tribunal, Nigerian Revenue Tribunals. They go for to seek redress or seek liability. To find a way of settling the liability. But with the Nigerian Joint Revenue Board Establishment Act, which encompasses all the revenue from all states, 36 states of the Federation and Abuja, they are under this joint tax board now. And the government has actually done its work by establishing ombudsman. That is, this organization will now seek redress for taxpayers that seek redress for liabilities, or they are not in agreement with the liability given to them.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Tejumola. Let me bring it to Mrs. Babatunde now. We understand there are some informal sectors, where their cash flow is not well documented, maybe regulated also. Now, how do we make sure, do we make sure, these informal sectors pay tax? How do we impute them into the new tax law system?
Okay, so talking about the new tax law, That is part of the intention of the new tax law. In a way, the new tax law is going to formalize the informal sector, because I must warn that it's no longer business as usual in Nigeria. Our tax system has been reformed, and we will begin to see changes. Come January 2026, every individual, every citizen of Nigeria, be you the informal, formal, organized private sector, individuals are now required to file their tax returns. And we are still in the era of self-assessment. So the various revenue authorities are coming out with implementation guidelines to be able to do this. So you can no longer hide under the fact that you are operating in the informal sector. That will no longer be tenable, because the law will fish you out.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Tejumola. Now, how do we ensure, these informal sectors register with the authorities to make sure they're filing their tax appropriately?
Yes, this is why we are going on sensitization. Like yesterday, the Chartered Institute of Taxation of Nigeria, CITN, we were out on a tax walk. We started from Iwo Road roundabout, and we ended it in Secretariat. Yes, we were meeting with roadside business owners. We were sensitizing them on the way forward, that they should come to tax authorities for registration of their businesses. We let them know that from January, it will not be business as usual, that they should come for registration of their businesses, because non-registration of businesses with tax authorities is illegal.
So talking of the registration, can you please run us through the process of this registration, for those who do not understand how it works, and, maybe where to go, the offices they should visit for such registration?
Let me say this. Most of these roadside businesses that are informal, most of them are small businesses. And for them to register, they have to come to tax authority like State Board of Internal Revenue. And then when they come, there are some documents they will need to bring along with them, like the name of the company or the name of individuals that are in business. Then they will be given forms for them to register. And most importantly, we have to get tax ID. With them, I know of...
when you say tax ID, that's the TIN?
Yes,
okay.
Tax identification number. And for them to have this, in fact, already they can do it in their homes or in their offices, because we already have it. You can do it by using www.tin.jtb.gov.ng. So with that, and they can as well go to tax authority, the State Internal Revenue. Then they'll be giving some forms to complete, and with under 24 hours, the tax ID will be...
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Tejumola. Mrs. Babatunde, I know you would want to add something to what Mr. Tejumola said, but also we understand, we're in the digital era, where sometimes we do not really need to get to a particular office before some of these registrations are being made or are done. How has it been simplified for people who do not have the time, to visit the office?
Okay, so like he said, you can log into www.jtb.gov.ng. And when we talk about tax ID, you know, when he mentioned it, he said tax ID, and you said tax identification number. The term tax identification number seemed to be scaring people. When this issue of reform started, people were scared. TIN number, they said without TIN, I can't operate my account.
Please, because I want you to, talk extensively on this. We have a commercial break, and when we return, you continue on that thought. Please stay with us.
Ready for school? Yes. My champs, they use energy at school. I know, because imagine the energy they may have used up to return home distransformed every day.
Your champs need nourishing energy. Give them Billow at breakfast.
It has nutrients that support energy release to help champs get the most out of their active days.
In today's fast-paced world, staying ahead demands peak performance from our bodies.
Like never before, our bodies need an optimum supply of essential nutrients, and Supermalt supports our daily nutritional needs.
Supermalt has 20 essential vitamins, minerals, and natural extracts for overall health and wellness. One Supermalt a day gives you energy and vitality, improves your mental performance, and supports your immunity.
Milo 3-in-1 Milky and Creamy is truly milky and contains calcium. So, no need to add milk for that rich, creamy cup, which helps to nourish your kids.
Thank you very much for staying with us. It's still talking about the new tax law and, how it works, the understanding, for individuals, small business owners, informal businesses, and, of course, the formal ones. But before we went on that break, Mrs. Babatunde, you were trying to, clarify the issue with the TIN and talking of the tax identification number.
Okay, so before we can have a good understanding of what we're talking about, I think we need to identify the taxpayers. You can either be a taxpayer on your individual name. Olaiton Babatunde is a taxpayer. I can have a business, Olaiton Babatunde and Sons, Olaiton Babatunde and Daughters, if you choose to. If you register this business with CAC, that is a business name. You could go a step further and make it Olaiton Babatunde Limited. If you're a limited liability company, that's another kettle of fish entirely. Because a limited liability company is a person, is a legal person, and is seen as such. So let's identify all the players in this. So let's take it one after the other. If you're an individual, your tax ID is a function of your NIN.
Okay.
This has been clarified severally. So you don't have to run helter-skelter. When this reform started, people were so scared. There were a lot of misconceptions. Come January, you won't be able to run your account. Your account will be frozen. But that has been cleared. If you have your NIN, it's as good as your tax ID. But if you are a registered business name, and we confuse this at times, most of the operators in the informal sector, they hide under the fact that I run my business, it's a one-man business, not remembering that this business name has been registered with CAC. So if that happens, you need to take a step further to register for tax purposes, especially with the Federal Inland Revenue Service. Even if you're a business name, although your income tax is not due to the Federal Inland Revenue Service, but you are obligated to them under VAT.
Yes.
And that is why you need to go register. And to do this, like my chairman said, you could do it in the comfort of your office if it is a new registration with CAC. But for the old registration, the automation didn't catch up with them. So you may still have to go and complete certain form at FRS. And then you will issue you your tax identification number, without which you can't even open a bank account for that business. So most of the operators in the informal sector, they have their business name. They, at some point, even their bankers may help them to generate this TIN to be able to operate that account. But they didn't do anything thereafter. If you check that TIN on the TIN verification, it will direct you to visit your tax office because FRS does not have their record. So it is time for us to begin to regularize things before January so that you will not be caught in the web of the law. Tax is law, and law will catch up with you. So it is important that we do the right thing before January 1st.
Okay, talking of tax is law, and you know, law will catch up with anyone who's. Now, what are those who can be termed responsible taxpayer, especially under this new, you know, tax law?
A responsible taxpayer is a taxpayer that is duly registered for tax purposes. That's the starting point. When you run your business, you run it on an identified name. Register it with CAC, register it with FRS for tax purposes, and file your return. That is what will make you a responsible taxpayer. You have to file your return as and when due, not just anytime. If you ask around, most people will go and process their tax clearance certificates on a need basis when they need it, and you discover that they will be asked to go and pay 3 years tax. That is not right. Tax is supposed to be paid on a yearly basis, and the return be filed on an annual basis. So to be a responsible taxpayer, you need to register and you need to file your return. And let me add one more bit to it. You need to keep proper record. Because in this new dispensation, it is your record that will save you. It is the documentation you have and the record you have kept. Because when the chips are down, the burden of proof is on you as a taxpayer. So it is important that you keep your record, you file your return, you register as a responsible taxpayer.
I want us to come to that record aspect. But before we do that, Mr. Tejumola, earlier you were talking about the processes and the documents needed, you know, to register, to file for, you know, register as a taxpayer in Nigeria. Now, you mentioned the name of the company or individual, and you also talked about your tax ID. And that was where you stopped, you know, talking of the clarification of the tax ID and how to get it and the NI. So please go ahead with the documents needed.
Thank you very much. Let me start from limited liability companies. For them to register in tax authority, that is Federal Inland Revenue Service, they need to come with the certificate of incorporation brought from CAC, Corporate Affairs Commission. They need to come with a memorandum and article of association, that is MEMAT. They need to come with the names of directors and the number of shareholding. They need to come with email address of directors. Then they need to come with the name and address of the company where they want this to be operating, the business address of the company. With the submission of all this with the tax authority, they will be fully registered within 24 hours.
Okay.
That is for limited liability companies. The limited liability companies, it's only the Federal Inland Revenue Service that administers them. Then for for enterprises and ventures, they are to register with State Board of Internal Revenue. And just like the coordinator said the other time, for them, because when it comes to VAT aspects for enterprises, and they need to come to Federal Inland Revenue Service as well to register, because only Federal Inland Revenue Service administers value-added tax in Nigeria.
Okay.
So that is for ventures and enterprises. For individuals, they need to go to state internal revenue for registration. That is, the state internal revenue keeps their records, and they are the one administering them for personal income tax, and for enterprises, and some of them, they pay value-added tax to federal government. They pay company income tax to states internal revenue. They pay stamp duties to state internal revenue and withholding tax to state internal revenue. Okay. So that is why the places of registration has to be understood.
So business, for clarity purpose, business owners, enterprises, small business, whatever business, FIRS, and individuals would go to the state.
Limited liability companies,
Limited
FIRS.
liability companies, FIRS, and
yes.
then individuals to the state
yes.
Inland Revenue Service. All right, thank you very much for that clarification. So let's look at the understanding the tax types now, and also the ones that apply to individuals. Now, for small business owners, or for the informal sectors, what type of tax is applied to them? Okay. Let's have Mrs. Tejumola, take that. Mrs. Babatunde, I beg your pardon.
Okay, so your question is, which class of tax is applicable to small businesses? I think we need to start by identifying who these small businesses are. Okay. Because it is already defined by law. So when we talk about tax, we need to be guided by the provision of the law. As it stands today, effective 1st of January, a small business is a business that has 50 million or less turnover in a year. Yeah. I said turnover, not profit. If your business do 50 million, below 50 million turnover in a year, you are seen as a small business. Even if you are an enterprise, you are seen as a small business. If you're a limited liability company, you are seen as a small business. However, whether you're a small or big business, the law still requires you to file your return. The exemption is that you are not going to pay tax. If you're a company, for example, you will be taxed at 0%, which is nothing. If you're an enterprise and you are under 50 million, you are not obligated to charge VAT. So you don't have obligation to FIRS. But you still have to file your nil return so as to be in the right standing with the law. Mm. So talking about, my chairman explained, an enterprise that is not a limited liability company is as good as the owner of that enterprise. And your tax obligation is to your state of residence. If you are doing your business in Gbagi, in Agbeni, you live in Oyo State, your obligation is to Oyo State government, and you are to pay your tax to Oyo State government. However, if all you are doing is VATable, and you charge that VAT, that is when you have contact with the Federal Inland Revenue Service. But the profit you are declaring on that business is seen as your personal profit, and you are supposed to declare it and pay tax to your state on it. But for a limited liability company, on the other hand, your obligation is to the federal government, and you have business with the Federal Inland Revenue Service.
Now, is this deducted, automatically from the source? Talking of the government, or, the business owner, the individual would have to declare, come out to say, I am paying my tax.
Okay, so like I said, we are in a self-assessment era. This notion, this wrong notion that they will be deducting your money from your bank account is wrong. Okay. Before your account can be debited, you must have received, even if at all they are going to go through that route, which is not likely, you will have received an assessment notice from the relevant tax authority.
What's an assessment notice? Before you answer that, we have a commercial break. We'll be right back.
Supramalt Multivitamin Junior.
Thank you very much for staying with us. Still trying to understand the new tax law before it takes effect, from January 1st, 2026. And before we went on that break, Mrs. Babatunde, you were explaining, how people, individuals or companies would file their tax. And I was asking, is it removed automatically? So you talked about an assessment notice. And I said, what's an assessment notice?
Okay, so an assessment notice is basically a demand of tax from the relevant tax authority.
Okay.
And the new tax law has empowered the tax authority to issue what we call administrative assessments. I said that we are in a self-assessment regime. Come January 2026, every individual is expected to file their return. We are giving up to March, the last day of March. That's 3 months to file our return for 2025. So if you fail to do that, the tax authority has the right to issue you an administrative assessment that, come, Mr. Man, you refuse to file your return, and we have assessed you. You live in Kolakwa-Ishola. Your children are going to private
So
university.
you have proper documentation of individuals.
We think that you must have made 20 million in 2025. And so we are assessing you based on income of 20 million. Go and pay so much tax. So if that happens, the burden of proof is on you to say, no, I've not made 20 million. These are my documents. But for me, you are better off if you filed your return before March ending. It is easier for you to defend what you have filed instead of allowing the authority to slam you an administrative assessment. Also, they have the right to give you additional assessments, even when you file your return, and the authority is of the opinion that you have underdeclared your income.
And thank you for mentioning that. That's also another aspect that it has been raising a lot of questions. But I think I would want Mr. Tejumola to answer that. Talking of, an individual under-declaring their income. Now, how do you know the income has been under-declared? For instance, a situation where you received a cash gift, or you probably, let's just use a cash gift, for instance. How do you know it's not, an income from the person? How do you differentiate that and, understand that it's not what the person has made for that year, but it's a gift?
Thank you very much. First, under declaration is tax evasion. And tax evasion under the Nigerian tax laws is something that is running against the government and which is punishable under law. So, some taxpayers, they under-declare their income. And then you ask, how do tax authorities know they under-declare? We have the obligation for companies to submit their returns with bank statements. And when we review these returns, especially the bank statement, you see a lot of payments into the bank, and it is the obligation of the taxpayers, when asked, to come and defend what is in the bank statement. And if it cannot provide a very good, substantiable evidence, that will resort to additional tax and liability for the person.
Okay, please, you want to add
so
to it?
I just want to add to it. Your question was, how will tax authority know that I've underdeclared my income? I will want to look at it from the angle of an individual. Like Yoruba people will say, Ojulo Monto Yono. So the tax authority, they are not angels, they are not spirits. They live with us. They know us. We go to the same church. We relate. So a tax man can assess you based on your lifestyle. I'm sure most people.
But you
will
would
say,
agree with me, there are people who also live beyond their means. Are you going to
That
judge
is-
them based on how they
That
look?
is why I said the burden of proof is now on you to prove. If I assess you that when she's coming to the office, she's always carrying designer bag, 2.5 million. She's wearing
What if
Versace.
what if it was a gift?
Yes. The burden of proof is on you to prove to me that it was a gift.
Yes.
As it stands today, gift is not taxable in Nigeria.
Yes.
So you need to prove to the tax authority. Okay, you live in an estate where your rent is 15 million per annum, and you've lived there for 15 years, and you're telling the tax authority that your lifestyle is funded by gifts. I think you have a lot to answer for. So we need to be ready to keep proper documentation to prove ourselves when the chips are down. We need to keep documentation, and we need to file our return. You know, you could have filed your return and spell out things to make a taxman comfortable with what you have filed. But there are a number of cases, a lot of cases of underdeclaration. And because, like I said, we know each other now, we know what we are worth. And I give it to your state. They have a whole department called Relationship Management Unit for high net worth individual. In this Ibadan, we know who is who. We know ourselves. So when we see such tax clearance, and that individual is saying that in a whole year, my total income is 2.5 million. Please, you need to explain. You ride a Prado Jeep that when you take it to Mandilas for servicing, once in 3 months, you spend like 200,000 alone on maintenance. We're not even talking about, it could be a gift. Oh, it's fine. Even if it's a gift, as long as you can prove it, there's no problem.
All right,
I want to add to what my sweet coordinator just said. You see, FIRS in particular works on intelligence reports. You see, the issue of tax, many taxpayers, not only the small business owners, will not come with the full information about their activities. And that is why we work on intelligence reports received from various persons or individuals. Like, let me give an instance. A particular company that has been operating for more than 10 years did not come to FRS to register, and it's a limited liability company. Then, when somebody now comes to give information about this company, we found out that this company has a sales of 1.3 billion on a monthly basis, and it has never registered with federal. So we call that tax evasion. So that is why we rely on information. We work on information gotten from individuals or associates in dealing with that kind of situation.
All right, thank you very much for clarifying that. Let's look at the issue of multiple taxation now. You know, so many people talk about, I also understand that this new tax law, you know, has also addressed that. But I would want us to also talk about that and, you know, explain extensively to Nigerians who might be concerned, you know, that they will be taxed on different levels. Mr. Tejumala, please go ahead with that.
Thank you very much. Yes, multiple taxation has been a very serious problem in tax administration in Nigeria. For instance, you travel from Oyo State to Ogun State. You see all these people, they call themselves tax they say they come from tax authority of that particular state. Then they will be asking you to pay before you can pass. You ask them, what I paid in my state? Are you saying you cannot, I cannot use it for instance, these various parks we have, they collect money, they collect, they call it levies, which are not part of a tax. But yet, they insist you have to pay the levy. Even within the same state, where you pay your company income tax, where you pay your stamp duty, where you pay your value-added tax and withholding tax, they still ask you to pay levies from...
So does that not speak to why individuals or people, under-declare their tax?
No, it's not.
I mean, no, I'm trying to say when they are paying on different levels and you're still being taxed
and
on
that is
something
why
else,
it is
and
now,
it's still not your tax.
And that is why it is now being addressed with the new tax law. The new tax law has addressed that. Come January 2026, the issue of multiple taxation has been addressed.
Okay.
I want to give another good example of what is obtaining now and which the new tax law has addressed. Take, for example, I live in Oyo State. I work in Oyo State. I pay my tax in Oyo State. And I have my tax clearance. I am from Osun State. My husband is from Ondo State. We all live here. If we decide to, okay, we don't want to forget our source, let's go and build a country home in Osun so that we can go there for vacation. Do you know that as it stands today, if I want to obtain the building plan, approved plan in Osun will ask me for my tax clearance in their state.
Yes.
And I'm not living in their state. So that is part of the multiple taxation we are talking about, and which this new law is addressing. By the time we unify my tax payments with my NIN, I can go to any state in Nigeria and show that where I am living, I have duly paid my tax. And I'm a responsible citizen of Nigeria by paying my tax. And my tax record in wherever I'm living in Nigeria will be useful in any other state. So the issue of having to pay multiple tax, if you need, even if the example I just gave, we also decide to go and build in Ondo State, we would get tax clearance in Ondo State. Our daughter wants to do something in Lagos State, and they said they need the tax clearance of the parents, we will pay. So all those
tax clearance obtained from a state can be used anywhere
from next year.
Nigeria.
Any tax clearance issued in a particular state will be useful in any of the 36 states in Nigeria.
Okay, that's so much, good for clarity purpose. And now let's look at for the small business owners who might not be able to pay their tax, in lump sum. Do we have a flexible payment plan for them? Can they pay in installment? Is it possible, Mrs. Babatunde?
Okay, let's clarify the type of tax we are talking about. I said we have even the people in the informal sector, the business name owner, they still pay VAT. VAT is not your money. It's something government asks you to collect while you are making your. So that one is, we are not even considering installment. For companies, limited liability company, the provision of the law as it stands today is that even if you want to pay in installment, you must pay the last installment by your due date. Your due date is 6 months after your year end. So if your year end is December, you have 6 months, which means up to June next year, to prepare your accounts, pay your money, file your return. So if you know that your cash flow may not support it in June, you can begin to pay in installments from January, February, March, April. So by June, you must have completed payment. Talking about individual, Individuals are supposed to render their tax return between January and March of every year. What I tell my clients is, since you are going to pay between January and March the same next year, this is Oyo State. They are organized. They issue official receipt. In January, if you know that your cash flow is good, pay something on account. In August, you did a good business. I don't want the burden in next year to be more. You can pay. You can even decide to be paying monthly. And when you are filing your return in the following year, you gather all your receipts together. If your tax liability by then is 3 million and you have gathered 2.5 million receipts, you pay the balance. So paying in installment is a form of tax planning, and it is encouraged. For individual, even if you are on direct assessment, you don't have to wait till you have that lump sum assessed before you begin to pay.
All right, thank you very much. Let's look at enforcement and penalties now, Mr. Tejumola. You know, there's been a lot of outcry since this new tax reform bill was passed into law, and it was set to take effect January 2026. But we wouldn't be surprised that some individuals, some companies have still not, you know, taking steps to make sure that, you know, they are being taxed effectively. Now, what's the penalty for such individual or companies, and how is it going to be enforced?
Yes, thank you very much. We already have penalties for non-registration of businesses, be it individual or limited liability companies, because the law stipulates that all company must register for tax. And if you don't register, and the tax authority now penalize you, you are going to be penalized for non-registration. And if, again, your company is now giving an assessment, because under the current tax law we are using, for assessments not paid after the due date, and you have not even raised any objection to such an assessment. And even if you are raising an objection, the objection must come within 30 days. 30 days after the assessments have been served. You are to pay, if I'm not mistaken, I think 10% of the assessed with interest at prevailing CBN rediscount rates on such assessments. And you see, if it is individuals, that the law stipulates that these individuals, upon charge into court, the court will compel them, and they can even be jailed. They can even be jailed, I think, for
up to how many years?
Up to 5 years.
Okay.
5 years.
And that's to speak to, you know, tax evaders now.
Yes.
As we wrap up, I just want you, you know, a few seconds, I want you to talk to tax evaders specifically. And of course, we also understand that it goes into the pocket of the government.
Yes.
And in fact, before you talk to the tax evaders, I want us to look briefly, you know, we've spoken so much about the people, individuals, companies, and how they should pay their tax. But what exactly is the government doing using with this tax? We talk about, you know, people say we don't even see what they are using our money for. Briefly, a few seconds.
Thank you very much. You see, government uses the tax money for provision of amenities and securities. And let me give an instance. When I was coming this morning from Idiakwe, the road here from Idiakwe to Alegongo, I can see the road is a well-built one. If not from the payment of taxes, revenue for government, where will government get money for this kind of the construction? So this is part of what government uses the tax money for. Then provision of social amenities, building of schools, and even provision of credits to individuals. Look at what the Bank of Industries is doing to our people, giving them loans at a very reduced rate. It comes from this fund from tax.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Tejumola. Mrs. Babatunde, in 30 seconds, I want you to, just one key message for every business owners, either small or, large business owners in Nigeria.
Okay, so briefly, my advice to business owner is that come 2026, register your business, file your return, keep proper record, and don't shy away from seeking professional help. You may not be able to do it all by yourself. Please seek professional help and avoid using tout to run your tax affairs.
And
that's mine.
That's also important. Thank you very much, Mrs. Olaiton Babatunde. She is tax expert and coordinator, Society of Women in Taxation Suite in Oyo State. We also have Mr. Kazim Tejumola. He is the chairman, Chartered Institute of Taxation, Nigeria, Ibadan District. Thank you very much. It's indeed a pleasure to have you both, talk to us about the new tax law and, of course, understanding it, especially for business owners. We also have some members of their team in the studio with us. We have Pastor Julius Olaniyo, is the immediate past chairman, Mrs. Bolaji Aderemi, the vice coordinator, suite, Mr. Ajala Taiwo, and Pastor Oduayo Aderemi. Thank you all so much for coming, to talk to us about understanding the new tax law. Thank you so much. We'll be right back with our second guest and, of course, our second topic. Please stay with us.
party in your system.
Welcome to our new kingdom, guys.
Comel, an effective weapon against malaria. Attacking the parasite army directly to give you express relief and get you back on your feet effectively. Comel on malaria gone.
Supramalt Multivitamin Junior.
All right, thank you very much for staying tuned to us. Yes, we're welcome back for the second segment right here this morning. And yes, we're ranging from emotional well-being, responsible fatherhood and societal roles. The conversation around men and boys is actually evolving. And yes, we're marking this year's International Men's Day. Yes, celebrating men and boys. And we're reflecting on the challenges and opportunities facing the male gender in today's world. And today we are joined by David Kadan, who is a passionate advocate for men's general well-being, to help us explore how society can be better and how we can better understand, support, and uplift men and boys across board. You're welcome this morning.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
So yes, it's great to have you, but then let's talk about the theme for this year's celebration, celebrating men and boys. Why that choice?
Yeah, because if you look generally, there is a lot of focus on the female gender. In fact, there was a year I was so offended that I looked, I think 2 years ago, I was just scrolling through my status on International Men's Day. No single woman posted Happy Father's Day or Happy Men's Day or was celebrating any man in her life. But we go all out to post about women, to talk about women. Do you understand? So I think it's a very strategic theme, especially for this year, to see the need to celebrate men. And men go all out to celebrate the people in their life, and men make all the sacrifices. I think it's good that we take time this year to celebrate men. Nobody is immune to being celebrated. Okay, everybody loves these things. And men are those figures that make things work. It's just like the internal parts of the body you don't see. I know those are the most important parts of the body, if I would say. You know, you can do without one of your legs. You can do without, but whenever an internal organ is affected, you know that it affects the entire body. But that is how men are. When things are working normally and nothing is spoiled, you know that there is something that is keeping the structure in shape, and that is what a man represents. So we need to celebrate them.
Okay, so I mean, I just wanted you to land on that before coming in. Talking about women, celebrating women, and you being offended. I also feel like men do not celebrate themselves enough. Women are at the forefront, talking about their struggles, talking about their challenges, talking about their victories, their successes, but men do not. And that's why, personally, I'm an advocate of, men and, their general well-being also. Yeah. And most times I say to men, you don't have to stay in silence. Speak up. Now, we also understand that we're in a society where, men are being shot sometimes to speak. You tell a man, oh, please, man up. Please don't cry, you are a man. Please, a man doesn't talk too much. Now, why is this so? And no, better still, how can we begin to change this narrative? I mean, let's also, talking of the theme, celebrating men and boys. We shape boys into the men we want them to become. How can we begin to change this narrative and tell men and tell boys that, speak up when you need to speak up, cry when you need to cry? What are the things we need to do?
Okay, thank you. So you've raised a lot of things in this question you've raised. Let me start from the point of encouraging men to celebrate themselves. You see that men are wired by nature to carry the burden of others. And sometimes you can be so carried away carrying the burden of others, and you may not even consider yourself. Recently, I just observed that I was looking for some money to do something for myself. And it's a very small amount. And I was like, I don't have money to do this thing. And a phone call from a dependent made me to give out over 10 times that amount. Do you understand? So afterward, I was like, you that said you don't have money to do this for yourself, where did you get money for this other person's need? Do you understand? Like, we're so carried away, carrying the burden of others, that we don't prioritize celebrating ourselves. Men are changing the narrative gradually. And also on the concept of telling men to speak out and all of that, I agree with that, but we have to also present that in a manner that men understand. Because we don't have to do it, the two genders are different. That's the truth. We are uniquely different, and we can't tell men to do what women are doing. We can't tell men to speak out the way women are speaking out. Because they are speaking out, yes, but it's in our nature to speak out where we know we'll find solution. And that is why my own opinion is for men to create their own safe spaces. All right? For example, there is a group of men that I belong to. They meet once every month. They just map out each other's houses, and they go there once in a month and sit down and discuss issues that concern them. And that's one of the meetings I always look out for, because you get to have men open up, share personal issues, very deep personal issues, and you have men across all ages. In fact, the oldest man there is 93, and I'm still there also. So when you raise issues, the man will start telling you, I remember in 1973 when I had this situation. Do you understand that? So you get men to share their burden.
So it's a cross-generational.
It's a cross-generational system. So that is what I encourage men to do. But in speaking out, a woman, for example, may speak out to her husband. He has the capacity to carry her. But of a truth, not every woman has the capacity to carry what a man would like to speak out about. That's the reality. Because what men carry, for example, let me give an example. Recently, I was in an event here in Ibadan. And it's an event for people to just open up and share issues. And a man was sharing about the issues he had in his family and how traumatizing an event occurred in the family, and everybody was broken. He spoke about how that, his children could not even stand the environment of the house because of what they were going through. And he had to do something around the loss of their mom. Now, he is hit by that event. He lost a wife. But the children are more traumatized. I can't say more, but they are also traumatized. Now, he needed to be a man for their sake. Do you understand that? And when he was sharing how that he would have to mask his feeling just for them to be secured. A man is the one that gives the sense of security in the house. Okay. Personally, I've had a trauma to growing up, because I wanted to start by defining what a man is, but we're getting there. We've had a traumatizing situation in my house. I always say that some people grow up too early, and I'm one of them. So when you have such an event as losing a father, somebody has to be the man for the house to be safe. Do you understand? That's why I encourage men to still be men. I encourage men to still be strong. But then, if you're familiar with Tim LaHaye and his writings on temperament and the strengths and weaknesses of temperament, there's one of his books that he wrote something very profound. He was talking about how that most people focus on the weaknesses of their temperament, all right, the weaknesses of their personality. But he said people have suffered more from the excesses of their strength than from their weaknesses. And that's what I think men are suffering from. They are suffering more from the excesses of their strength than from their weaknesses, because a man can confront his weakness and crush it. But the excesses of our strength is what we need, because it is strength for you to acknowledge that you're weak. Okay, I remember a rapper I love so much. One of his lines said, I am not the strongest, I just know my weakness. Do you understand? So when you know your weakness, and you should understand that even the excess of your strength is weakness. Where toxic masculinity comes from is most times from the excesses of our strength.
Okay,
so yeah.
Now, you've mentioned something,
yeah.
And from your explanations, I've deduced that you've pointed out that there's certain realities that men face, and there has to be that sense of responsibility at all times. Now, I'm trying to look at this area now, because where we're talking about needing a better society is also asking for solutions.
Yes.
And one of those things is one thing you mentioned earlier on, the women around them. You said many of them, most times you find, cannot hold on or carry the weight of whatever the man is pouring out. How do we build a society? Because I've seen a lot of people talk about their relationships, their marriages fail because, the woman is just coming out pouring out everything, and the man barely has a chance to speak about, this is hurting me, this is something affecting me. So how do we build a society where, you know, at least to a fair extent, we know that men cannot come out all the time and say, this is affecting me. But to a fair extent, the people around them, be it the women or the kids around them, can actually say, okay, yeah, I think I can be a little bit strong for you in this moment and help you through. How can we build a society? Because, I mean, there are two sides to a coin, and we have to help each other out.
So I agree with you. Primarily, it is the man's responsibility to create that system for himself. And then as to celebrating men and boys from our team today, I will emphasize the people to celebrate the man. Okay. Now let's start from the women. Okay. So a woman should be able to, because let me start by defining how I define a man. Okay. I define a man by responsibility. That's the word I used to define a man, responsibility. I've seen someone also define a man as work. That's why if you've come close to a man who just lost his job, you'll understand that that person is feeling like he has almost lost himself. Okay? So some boys are men already by virtue of the responsibilities they are taking. While there are some men that even at 60 they are boys because of lack of responsibility. Okay? So I'm saying that when men take responsibility to understand that they matter primarily to themselves, because I see that most men think more of others than themselves. And that is the reason why we have higher mortalities of men than women. When you think of others more than you think of yourself, and you think of how that others matter more than yourself. I remember there are times that I was taking serious risks in my life, and I just sat down one day and I was just thinking about how that I matter to myself too. Okay? I remember there was a time I was working so hard that even my body was giving me symptoms of certain sicknesses, but I'll have to push through. And we see men, that's why you see clinically diagnosed depressions is higher. Because not because it's higher in women, but the category men belong to is undiagnosed. A man will rarely go to a therapist to see a therapist. I've only done that once because it was so much I needed to see a therapist. But it's rare for a man to want to go and acknowledge that, okay, he needs this help. Even when it comes to sicknesses, it is until it has gotten to a very critical stage. You know, health-seeking behavior is very low in men. So I see that men should first think of themselves as they matter to themselves. And when you think that way, then you can be able to matter to others around you. Okay?
All right, now, I want to speak to something a bit sensitive now.
Yeah.
And for years, I've been reading up on several conversations, trends online, and, you know, apart from books that I grew up with. And I discovered something. A lot of times we seed some societal evils and say, this is just men. They can't correct this. We can't address this. And in my school of thought, I think a lot of people should actually look at those raising them as well, including the women. There have been rape cases, there have been murder cases, and all that involving quite a number of men. And I think at some point we need to say, aside men speaking to themselves to be better, how about the mothers bringing them up? Because I'm a sucker for having everybody joining hands for a wholesome solution. That's why I'm bringing the women to this table again. We're celebrating men, all right, but how can we get the women also to realize that right from when this man was a boy, was a kid, there are some things that you should be doing or should have done. I think there should be some intentionality on the part of the women as well, don't you think?
Yes, I agree. You see, research has shown that men are more loyal to their mothers than their fathers. And we are largely products of our mothers. Okay? For example, my mother will not cook unless she's expecting a very special guest and she doesn't want us to embarrass her. The boys do the cooking. Do you understand? We've always cooked. Let me share this funny example. We grew up first 3 boys and then last 2 girls. And then, fortunately, unfortunately, my little sister didn't grow up with us. So for the first time in my life, she came and she served me food. And that was the first time in my life that somebody would come and serve me food. You know, I was so touched that I was moved to tears. That first time in my life. That she even dropped the food and apologized for forgetting to bring water. You understand what I'm talking about? I'm saying that our mothers have the larger influence in our lives. And mothers must be able to be versatile enough to be able to raise the kind of man that the society would benefit from. And if you've seen, I've seen people that have grown up in very violent families. You see that they are willing to go all out to protect their mother. So I see that mothers must build themselves, because where we are feeling, where I can see the women are feeling, is their inability to understand holistically how to shape the male child. Okay, but whatever you deposit in him is what he grows up to become. Okay, so I see that it's a lot on the women, because they have more time with the children. I know that society is changing now, and most of our children are raised by caregivers, you know, and some of those failures in the fabrics of family system. While I know that industrialization and the fast-paced generation we find ourselves has really hit into the fabrics of family, but I think that it is important that we prioritize that, because at the end of the day, we are accountable for the children we raise. Okay.
So what are the steps men should take to prioritize their mental health and also to celebrate with themselves?
Yes, it's important. The first I mentioned earlier was the issue of creating a safe space for themselves. Okay, and then what you make your house to be is what it becomes as a man. Okay, and I believe that women give you what you give to them. If you give her peace, she will give you more peace in return. Okay, so men should be able to take out time to prioritize their health, which is primary, for the sake of yourself and for the sake of your family. Okay, secondly is to be able to create an atmosphere where you don't make yourself be a second God. I always tell people, when you play the role of God in people's lives, they will look away from God and focus on you. And then you have to do what you started. You have to finish what you started. So you must also understand, I'm a Christian and I believe in God. So, and I always tell people that, see, nobody should depend on me. Okay? While I depend on God, I should teach them to depend on God. So I see most men playing the role of God in their families. And that's why when the man goes, the family scatters. In fact, there are people that cannot stand the absence of a father figure.
So they're expected to create an enabling
environment for everybody to stand, both the wife and the children and everybody depending on you. Then secondly is the issue of creating a safe space